Hi, welcome to Used Bike Reviews. I'm your host, Peter Monshizadeh. Here on Used Bike Reviews, we aim to highlight motorcycles of the late 80s to the late 2000s. These bikes are high on performance, charm, practicality, and most importantly, value. Our quest is to provide you with knowledge about some of the coolest bikes of a not-so-distant era, and possibly convince you into buying one for yourself. Today's featured bike is one of the most iconic modern sports bikes to bridge the millennium, the Ducati 996. The 996 really is the melding of beauty and the beast. The deep V-twin roar mixed with beautiful lines and vibrant colors make this bike a masterwork in sports bike theory. First pinned by Massimo Tamburini, get this, nearly 3 decades ago. The design and beauty of this bike has definitely stood the test of time. The 996 is the middle child of a deep family of Ducati superbikes. While not the first Ducati road bike fitted with fuel injection and 4-valve heads, the introduction of the 916 in 1994 still managed to flip the motorcycling world upside down. Utilizing the same styling as the old 916, but with a larger engine displacement and higher spec components, the 1999 introduction of the 996 capitalized on its predecessor's successes and still proved to reign supreme in the superbike realm. So, all that glorified history is great and all, but you might be asking, what is it about this bike that should make me buy it? Well, unlike all its contemporaries, such as the R6, the Ninja, the GSX-R, this bike is every bit a piece of artwork as it is a track day weapon. The longer you stare at one of these bikes, the more details you'll find. Even the simplest parts appear to have come straight out of an art studio. This particular bike is a 2001 model year, the final iteration of the 996. If you can get your hands on one of these, you'll be rewarded with the highest spec componentry 2001 had to offer. From the gold Showa forks, Brembo calipers, discs, and master cylinders to the forged Marcassini wheels and Öhlins shock, this Ducati really was racetrack ready from the showroom. You may have heard that Ducatis aren't practical, but please show me another sports bike where you can strip the fairings off in the matter of seconds. Now, I suppose it's time I address the elephant in the room. Ducatis aren't exactly known as the most reliable bikes on the road, but a lot of that is misguided. These bikes can indeed be just as reliable as its Japanese counterparts, as long as preventative maintenance is performed. As I just demonstrated, getting under the skin of a Ducati can be accomplished in a matter of seconds. Once there, you have very few nuts and bolts to remove before you're at the inner workings of this Italian beast. There are 3 very important maintenance items to keep track of on a 996: timing belts, oil changes, and valve adjustments. This motorcycle has 2 timing belts, one for each bank of the L-twin engine. Ducati suggests that these are replaced every 2 years or 12,000 miles. While it may sound daunting, accessing the belts on one of these bikes is not too difficult. If you are unsure of the belt's condition, they can easily be inspected by removing the belt covers behind the battery. Oil changes are pretty much like any other bike on the road. It's a good idea to change the oil every 2,000 to 3,000 miles. An expensive but common issue reported on a number of 996s is rocker flaking. The valve train rockers are chrome plated, and this plating is known to chip when starved for oil, which is often caused by not giving the engine adequate time to warm up. When changing the oil, check for small chrome flakes in the oil strainer screen, as this will point to one or more rockers requiring replacement. One of the factors that makes Ducati so unique is their utilization of desmodromic valve train. Unlike other modern motorcycles which use springs to close the intake and exhaust valves, Ducatis have physical levers that force open and force close each valve. It's a very neat concept, but ultimately produces a greater amount of wear on the valve train. Due to this, Ducati recommends that the valves are checked every 6,000 miles and adjusted as needed. All this talk about maintenance, valve adjustments, belt changes, flaking rockers may seem overwhelming when compared to your typical Japanese motorcycle. And quite frankly, it is more maintenance in this sort of motorcycle. But this is where you have to ask yourself, am I a competent mechanic or do I need to have someone else do the work for me? If you feel best leaving the maintenance stuff to your mechanic, it's a good idea to budget about $600 to $1,000 every 2 years to take care of the recommended major services. However, if you are handy with a wrench, you can save a great deal of money doing your own maintenance. There are a few specialized tools you will need, but you can purchase all of these and the needed parts for less than the price of one dealer service. These tools and parts include the factory service manual. This will show you all the maintenance processes in detailed steps and provide exacting tolerances and fastener torque values. A belt tensioner gauge. While there are many schools of thought on establishing the correct timing belt tension, the only surefire way is to get yourself a belt tensioner gauge made for the job. This one displayed here is the actual Ducati specified gauge. A camshaft holding tool. These aren't a requirement, but they will make life easier when battling the camshafts that are under compression during a timing belt change. A set of feeler gauges. These are a must for checking valve clearances on a 996 cylinder head. Access is minimal when adjusting valves on a 996, and these gauges are specifically shaped to allow maximum access. A set of timing belts. They come in a pack of 2 and run about $100. They should be Kevlar reinforced with red lettering on the back. This is an indication of the updated belt design, and it should be the only kind that you put onto your 996. If you're going out to look at one of these bikes, there's some simple things you can look for that are more telling about the bike's history than simply just asking the owner what has happened to this bike in the past. Fairings will be the first indicator of how a bike has been treated. Notable scraping will be apparent on the side of the fairings. However, this should not be your one-stop check for overall condition, as bodywork can be replaced or repaired. It should be noted that small nicks, chips, or scratches should be considered normal wear and tear. Next, check the tires for signs of track day use. Even though this bike is made for the track, you still want to be sure you aren't investing in a tired ex-race bike. While you're there, be sure to check for fork seal leaks. Looking behind the fairings can give way to a more telling history. Inspect the sides of the radiator for dents or deep scrapes. Do the same for the clutch and stator covers on the side of the engine. A serious fall can damage these pieces even if they are normally covered by fairings. Inspect the bottom of the foot brake lever and foot peg for scrapes. Check out the passenger foot peg perch. Also, look at the sides of the mirrors, brake and clutch levers, and turn signals. These are the first places to strike the ground if ever tipped over. I always advise looking at the most cosmetically original bike you can find. Things such as factory turn signals and mud guards give less reason to assume shoddy wiring, tasteless modification, or previous accident damage. Now that the responsible part of justifying Ducati ownership is out of the way, let's put our helmets on and see how she rides in the real world. It doesn't take but 5 minutes in the saddle to realize this Italian stallion is better suited for the track than the rush hour commute. The riding position is cramped with a tremendous amount of weight put on the wrists. The clutch lever is relatively heavy, and paired with the long first gear, you may find your left hand getting quite the workout. The engine produces a lot of heat when moving below 30 miles per hour and can become uncomfortable while waiting at a stoplight. This particular 996 may have a passenger seat, but don't expect to get much use from it. The bike is much happier riding solo. While it may be reasonably uncomfortable and impractical for everyday use, everything else about this bike shines like the sun. The engine feels like it makes more power than the factory specified 112 horsepower. The mid-range grunt would make even the most potent four-cylinders sit back and take note. Upshifts are positive, but downshifts require an affirming kick so you don't find yourself with the occasional false neutral. Suspension on the 996 is fully adjustable, but even on the softest setting is quite firm. This provides true tracking through turns and gives excellent feedback to the rider. The 4-piston Brembo brakes are really the stuff, providing huge initial bite and excellent feel at all speeds. Then there is the sound of that beautiful Italian chorus residing under the tank. Hearing the revs climb full song to the 10,000 RPM redline is something every motorcycle enthusiast should experience. This feature alone might just seal the deal. Now is the time to get in on buying one of these modern classics, as the prices seem to have bottomed out. Expect to pay around $4,000 for a rough and ready example, all the way up to $7,500 for a low mileage garage queen. This is a bike you buy with your heart, not your head. Its amazing looks, amazing sound, and amazing value heavily outweigh its impracticality. Thanks for joining us on Used Bike Reviews. We'll see you next time.